That's the best portrait that I know of God, our Heavenly Father, Abba. What is God like? Rembrandt, the great Dutch master, painted the return of the prodigal son. It's a large portrait that hangs in St. Petersburg, Russia. Catherine the Great bought Rembrandt's masterpiece, and it's in the Hermitage Museum. And back in the 1980s, Father Henry Nouwen, a Dutch priest, went to St. Petersburg, and he just sat in front of the Dutch masterpiece and meditated and prayed hour after hour after hour. Rembrandt, if I may say, has the authority that comes from suffering. He died at 63. He lost his wife, he lost 2 daughters, and he lost 3 sons. He buried his wife and 5 children. Now, great suffering, it can go either way. It can drive us away from God or bring us closer to God. And I believe because of his suffering, Rembrandt got it. He got this parable, and he painted the Father, blind, almost blind, and the prodigal son with his head on his father's stomach, almost like he's in the womb again. He looks like a child in the womb. And the elder brother just sternly looking on in silence. So what I want to present to you comes from Henry Nouwen's book, The Return of the Prodigal Son. I think it is Henry Nouwen's masterpiece. Let's just take a look at how Jesus paints his Father. What is God like? Now, the younger son is a brat. I mean, he is revolting. Imagine going up to your dad or your mom and saying, you know, I want my inheritance now. You usually get that when they die. It's like saying, you know, drop dead. I want it now. I mean, just a rude, revolting figure. Selfish, self-centered. Couldn't paint a more selfish kid. It's a parable. I wouldn't have given him anything, but his father, it's a parable. He gives him his share, and of course he squanders it. It's all gone, and of course he's Jewish, and you know the whole kosher laws. You don't have anything to do with pigs. He ends up taking care of the swine. He ends up taking care of the pigs, and he'd like to eat the food that they have. He comes back. Why does he come back? Because he loves his father? Because he's sorry? He comes back, no, because he's starving. He's hungry. His belly is growling. So he makes up this little speech, I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired hands. He gets up and he comes back. And the churches always call this imperfect contrition. It isn't really out of great love or sorrow for his sins. He comes back because of his need for food. But he comes back. It's imperfect, but he comes back. And now we look at what God is like. God is the old man. And he sees his second son. And I'm a second son, so I identify with this. He sees his second son. And we got to understand this. He probably has lice. He stinks. He smells like pigs. He has no shoes. He's in rags. And his father runs and takes him takes his baby in his arms, takes his kid in his arms, and he kisses him. And then the son gives a little speech, starts the speech. The father ignores it. And he dresses him up, cleans him up, puts a ring on his finger, which means he's a member of the family again, sandals on his feet, has this big party. Notice, no humiliation by the father, no embarrassment, no punishment. Look at that. That's what God the Father's like. He doesn't humiliate us. He doesn't embarrass us. He doesn't punish us. He takes us in his arms. He wants his kid back. Isn't that beautiful? How can we not love, but not fall in love with this God? If this is what God is like this old man, how can we not love God? And he has this great big celebration. Well, he has another son. And this son never left home. And he has wonderful qualities. He works hard. He's honest. He's industrious. He never is late. He does all the work the way it should be done. When he finds out that his younger brother has returned, just the opposite of his father, he's furious. He's angry. He's resentful. He wants revenge and punishment, and he will not go into the house to celebrate. So he has his own sins. The younger brother had the sins of the faraway country. The older brother had the sins of those who stay home. Resentment, anger, jealousy. He started to pout. An adult pouting. You never gave me as much to celebrate with my friends. He's pouting. But notice, God, the Father, to the younger son, he runs down the road and takes him in his arms. To the older son, the father goes out and pleads with him. Please come in. Come in and celebrate with your family. Your brother's back. You know, there's no indication that the older son loved his father. He said, I served you. I slaved for you. But he never says to, I really enjoy being with you, Dad. I'm so glad that you're my father. I'm so glad that we live in the same house. Thank you for everything. No indication of that at all. He too has his sins, the sins of one who stays home. Well, Henry Nouwen now, here's what he does. He says to each one of us, can you identify with the younger son who left home, who left his father, the sins of the faraway? I can identify with that. So he said, identify with that. Identify with the younger son. But then he says, identify with the older brother. Have you ever been angry? Have you ever been jealous? Have you ever pouted? Have you ever not wanted to forgive? Did you want revenge? I can identify with the older son too. You identify with both, he says. And then, and here it is, folks, Henry Nouwen says this: Rembrandt, when he painted the old man, one is the hand of a man, the hand of the Father, that holds us securely. The other is a woman's hand, the hand of our mother, who caresses us. So he's saying that God, whose pure spirit, is both our Father and our mother. God is both our Father and our mother. And he says to the women, now you must become like God. And he says to the men, now you too must become like God. We have to become the compassion in the world. We have to become like God. That's the challenge. Isn't that beautiful? That we would be. He said, look at your hands, and instead of hands that hit and hurt, make sure that your hands are hands that bless people, that caress people, that embrace people. Become the compassion of God in the world. I just get so excited. If this is what God is like, if God is like the Father in this parable, how can we be afraid of God? How can we not love God? He's so lovable. Teresa of Avila said this. She said, I'm not afraid of God. She said, the only fear I have is that I will hurt God. And he's been hurt enough. We can hurt God. The Father in this parable has been hurt. But he has tears, he has forgiveness, he has generosity, he is compassion. That's who God is. God is compassionate, suffering, compassionate love. So Henry Nouwen says, become the younger son, become the older son, but then become the Father. Extraordinary. Extraordinary. That's why the gospel is good news. I mean,